Okay, let me tell you about earthworms. Yeah, everyone loves earthworms. I work on many different subjects, but people always ask me only about earthworms. So, after all, happy farmers are always holding dirt and earthworms in their hands, right? So there are about 3,000 earthworm species in the world, and they are everywhere. And we expect to see them everywhere we go, and because we believe they are everywhere. But are they really? We have to dial back the time. 10,000 years ago, glaciers wiped native earthworms out in most of the northern hemisphere. So then glacier melted away and the forest followed, but earthworms couldn't catch up. Why? Because they are so slow. And they could have barely crossed Chicago since the last glacier. So, as a result, Great Lakes, New England, much of Canada, Alaska evolved without earthworms since the last glacier. So this is the area of the Ojibwe, tribe. And they knew this all the time, that as we know now, all of the earthworms you see in this area is not native and or European species. And that's also true in the other side of the Atlantic. When I met Matthias at the Sami village in northern Sweden, his grandchildren were visiting, and we are collecting earthworms with them. But Matthias had never seen earthworms until he guided the recreational fishermen from Stockholm 30 years ago. Now his backyard is teeming with earthworms that the fishermen left him with, and it is flooding out to the neighboring birch forest. So pandemic also left a mark on earthworm invasion history. So Spanish flu arrived in Nona, Alaska, which was then a popular gold rush town, and it killed many indigenous people. And then the orphanage was built in a pilgrim hospital to house the kids of those victims. And being in the geothermal area, they were able to cultivate the soils, and they were able to farm. So without knowing, and then they introduced the European earthworms. So now we are finding earthworm community in the middle of tundra. So should we worry about this? And to answer these questions, we can go to the forest before and after earthworm invasion in the previously glaciated landscapes. So this is hardwood forest in Minnesota, and before earthworm invasion, the ground is covered with green, rushy understory plants, and the ground is so soft because it is covered with a thick litter layer. But once you step into the earthworm-infested forest, the rushy green understory is gone, and the ground is no longer soft because earthworms have consumed all the thick litter layer. So those invasive European worms, do the same thing wherever they invade. And then they basically remove this litter layer, which is shown as O in these photos, and replace them with mineral-rich A horizons. And that rapid transition involves the loss of carbon and loss of the nutrients with many negative impacts on the plants. So, several years ago, I was sitting in a room with other people who are interested in invasive earthworms. And then the topic shifted to jumping worms of Asian origin. And I heard, oh, Asian worms are horrible. And Asian worms killed European worms, and that they are going to kill all our forest. And being an only Asian and a non-white person in the room, I was beginning to wonder, should I feel awkward about this? And then my colleague chimed in and tried to save me by saying that there are also wonderful Asians like Kyungsoo. But oh boy, that made it even more awkward. But jumping worms also do the negative things indeed to the soils. They make a soil texture like a can liter of coffee grounds. So the soil becomes extremely loose for acting as a medium for holding plant roots. And those jumping worms are annual, so they die out at the end of the fall. But their cocoons persist in winter and hatch in the spring. And then unfortunately, the mulch and compost are a really good way of transporting them and introducing them. So as a result, the jumping worms are spreading out quickly, and then they are forming the big second wave of invasive earthworms, and that they are going to endanger our forest unless we act quickly. So my question to you today is, are earthworms really the symbol of life-giving soils? The answer is not all the time and not everywhere. I wanted to really remind you that in the Arctic forest, they evolved without awesomes since the last glacier. Let's keep it that way. Thank you.